My name is Anna Kisbet, and I'm going to be talking about ABA on culture. And culture is pretty broad, so I try to compact this as much as I can. So I'll just break it down. I'm just going to talk about what's culture, why it's important, some articles that I found interesting, and tips that can help you in your future and behavior analyst. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, so what is culture? Well, custom beliefs, social forms, and material traits of rational, religious, or social groups. The characteristic features of everyday existence, sharing by people in places or sets of shared attitude, values, goals, and practice of characteristics that institutions or organization or sets values of social practice. What does this mean for behavior analysts? Well, culture is everywhere. You could have a culture where you work, that's the culture of the work environment, and then different than your personal life. But as a behavior analyst, you're going to be dealing with different cultures. And you got to understand that there could also be a dominant culture and a secondary culture. And since humans are not black and white, there could be multiple cultures that do factors are contributing to the person, how they view and think things. An example I could give you is you could have a person that's born American and parents or family are from Middle East and South America. And that person could also be gay, so he has that culture of the LGBTQ community. So those could be a factor of how a person could behave and think that we might have to take account and consideration. Now, why is it important about someone's culture? Well, that takes us to the next slide. So, what's important is that if you don't understand the culture, there could be misunderstanding occurring. So a good example is in the military. If someone's talking about magazines, they're not talking about magazines. They're talking about guns or so if you didn't understand that, that might be important if you're dealing with a military person, especially if they're suicidal. Now, a lack of trust, it's not a factor. And these two things, misunderstanding and lack of trust, can build up to have stigmas and fears. So the previous example of the person that has multiple culture, they might not be really open sharing one culture with another culture of in his life. So that's when you have to be more empathetic and sympathetic when you're trying to help. When you're trying to empower a community or a client. Let's just go to the next one. So, through my paper, I found that investigation is always good. So you always encourage people to investigate culture-related topics. Would be helpful. This article talks about community college and the teachers there, and their previous experience and classroom instruction behaviors. And the finding of the service provides evidence supporting that factories believes previous experience and direct influence on instruction practices and behaviors. So if you're in a school environment, you gotta just take that in consideration that the teacher might have previous experience or assumptions of certain behavior and assume that the current client has the same situation occurring. And that's something you have to consider when you're talking to the teacher and trying to help the client as well. Now, the second one says more research. This one talks about finding what's the difference in certain communities and why certain communities are able to identify certain issues or features that other communities are not previous to. This article talks about they took 119 mothers acknowledging about autism spectrum disorder, and they gave examples of labor of the child, level of conscious and helpful services, attitude towards mental health services, and trust in provided. And the results is that compared to the white counterparts, African Americans have a less knowledgeable of autism spectrum disorder and are less likely to identify their child be potential with autism spectrum disorder. And so rational ethics differences are not founded for attitudes of mental health, stigmas, and helping seek intentions. There should be more studies to perception of the IDD and mental health. What this just says that African American community has a little harder time getting access or understanding the information they need to get. This case is more about the ASD, but as a behavior analyst, you will have to experience that. You're dealing with communities that are not understanding what are you doing there and how are you going to help them or empower them, sorry. And with that, I'll talk about solutions and successions. So just got to remember, culture's everywhere, and education is a tool that builds open society. And how education can be in many forms. You could be asking the locals or the community that you're helping, and they're willing to answer the question if they see you're generally curious about it. Another way is that the community might have workshops, events that help you understand that culture. And if they also, awareness is a critique of knowing cultural differences and similarity may allow for program modification that results in more cultural appropriate models of behavior analytical service delivered. So this means is understanding the culture could help you with the clients and what the client needs. Example, if the client needs to go to church because that's part of the culture of his family, then you have to understand like what's in the church that the client needs to learn or master. One way a behavior analyst can check for discrimination of our behavior is more awareness of personal cultural values, and consciousness is a great start. Another thing is understanding yourself and lack of better words, your discrimination or your biases that might blind you from seeing certain behaviors that might be important for the client. And another is training methods that improve interpersonal communication skills. So mock trainings are always helpful. So you could always have another behavior analyst help you with situations and work with your languages on how you can communicate that more effective with different levels of the community. With this says in mind, thank you for listening to me. I try to keep this short, and it was great, interesting topic, and here are some research references. Thank you. Bye.